God, the Bible, health, spirituality, life, death, and so much more on Reconsidered. Today we're going to talk about scurvy. And the reason why we're going to talk about scurvy is scurvy was something that pirates experienced when they were on voyage. And so I'm going to read to you some of the symptoms of scurvy, okay? So lethargy, very debilitating. Your body feels weak, your joints ache, your arms and legs swell, and your legs and your skin bruises at the slightest touch. As the disease progresses, your gums become spongy and your breath foul and your teeth loosen. Internal hemorrhaging makes splotches on your skin, old wounds and open mucous membranes bleed. Left untreated, you will die, likely from sudden hemorrhage near your heart or brain. There was one time a survival story written by an unknown surgeon on a 16th century English voyage that reveals the horror of the disease. He said, "It rotted all my gums, which gave out a black and putrid blood. My thighs and lower legs were black and gangrenous. I was forced to use my knife each day to cut the flesh in order to release the black and foul blood. I also used my knife on my gums, which were livid and growing over my teeth. When I had cut away this dead flesh and caused much black blood to flow, I rinsed my mouth and teeth with my urine, rubbing them very hard. And the unfortunate thing was that I could not eat, desiring more to swallow than to chew, and many of our people died of it every day, and we saw bodies thrown into the sea constantly, 3 or 4 at a time. The scene grew ever worse for some other people. Sick men with open sores and rotten wounds swaying in a tightly packaged hammocks above sloshing, rotten-infested floor." So why is the floor sloshing and rotten-infested? So if you're in the bilge of a boat, which is the bottom part of a boat, by the way, bilge means nonsense or rubbish. So water collects in the bilge. So any water that goes onto the boat, it goes down into the bilge. So just imagine if you have a drain, like you ever seen a basement, you have a drain, and say you're on a ship though. And so the water goes down to this drain, and that is where the bilge is. So water collects there and it goes into a bilge, into the bilge. And so that's the bottom of a ship. And it's very sloshy, it's nasty. It's the bilge is the lowest interior part of a hull, which is the bottom of the ship, where the water, oil, and debris collect, coming from leaks, rain, and condensation. Excuse me, sorry. And so here we have a description of sickness of scurvy amongst pirates in the 16th, 15th, 17th, 18th centuries. And then we have the description of what a bilge is. And so also let's consider a little more of the description of scurvy. Victims developed discolored spots all over their bodies. Their legs were swelled if they exerted themselves in even the slightest, tiniest degree. They were simply moved by someone else. They were apt to swoon and die immediately. When they did, they often remained right where they were, since the remaining crew was too weak to throw their bodies overboard. So now it's known that in our day that fresh fruits and vegetables stave off scurvy. but early explorers didn't know that. Um, they didn't understand collagen or enzymes and things like that. So the doctors and scientific thinkers did not. They also lacked the analytical tools and chemical knowledge necessary to even conceive of a natural deficiency which caused the disease. So, I want everyone to consider that. I want everyone to pause and imagine a ship and its bilge, which is nonsense and rubbish, because it's a bunch of nonsense that slaves were in the bilge. And it was filled with a bunch of rubbish because we can't find any slave ships. So there was water, condensation oil, and other things down in the bilge. There were no 250 to 297 slaves per ship at the bottom. So if we consider West Africa and we consider the 1493 Doctrine of Discovery issued by Pope Alexander VI was issued as a justification by Spain to take lands from non-Christians on the west, and the Doctrine of Discovery stated that non-Christian lands should be taken and ruled by Christian nations and indigenous people. Africans and Native Americans living in their land should convert to Christianity. So, imagine the Doctrine of Discovery. These people who were pagans needed to convert to Christianity. So you have these people who could say, okay, I will do it. And maybe some of the pagans of the land, as we've been told, they gave over some of their own people. Well, if people did not want to continue in the practices that they had before, whether it was voodoo or anything else, and they said they want to be Christians, then go ahead with the Spaniards. Go with England on their ships to the New World. Go there. So we shall go. And if some of us were kidnapped, okay, well, I must convert to Christianity. Okay. So you're going to the New World with us because we need help. Get on the boat. You ever read 12 Years a Slave? Some people watch the movie, but you have to read the book. He was at one time on a boat with others. And they weren't necessarily they weren't in the bilge. They were on the boat with everyone else. They were just being watched by a guard. So what happens once you get to the New World? Then you're put in shackles and you're sold. Okay? So I want people to understand this whole slave ship business is nonsense. Because a bilge will not have people full of scurvy. They would come to America with their legs covered in gangrene and cut off. The rest of the ship would be in danger because it would have spread. Rats were down there in the bilge. That's why you don't find any slave ships with the evidence that there were slaves at the bottom of it. There's just pictures. Those were probably just some blueprints of some design that someone was hoping for. But that did not happen. Trust me.